Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. In the near future, dreams have become a commodity. Through advanced neural interface technology, people can enter the dreams of others, crafted by skilled designers, to experience lives and fantasies they could never achieve in reality. Dream designers, once obscure creators, are now the architects of these intricate, virtual worlds, highly sought after for their ability to weave experiences that feel more vivid and fulfilling than real life. Eric Sterling is one of the best in the field. Known for his innovative ideas and breathtaking dreamscapes, he has built a reputation for crafting dreams that leave his clients in awe. He has a meticulous process. Every detail of the dream must be perfect, every element in its place. The landscapes he designs are like paintings come to life, where the colors seem more vibrant, the air fresher, and the emotions more intense. His clients come from all walks of life, seeking escape, adventure, or simply a taste of a life they will never have. One day, while working on a new project for a high-profile client, something strange happens. In the middle of creating a serene, sun-drenched island paradise, a fragment of a completely different dream begins to intrude. At first, it's just a flicker, a brief moment of darkness in an otherwise perfect scene. But as Eric tries to move past it, the fragment grows, until it's impossible to ignore. The scene it shows is jarring, a city in ruins, skyscrapers crumbling, fires raging, and the sky filled with ash. The destruction is so vivid, so real, that Eric can almost feel the heat of the flames on his skin. He stops, takes a step back, and tries to understand what just happened. This kind of interference is unheard of, especially in a dream he has total control over. He rewinds the dream sequence, adjusts the parameters, and resumes his work. But the fragment appears again, this time more persistent. No matter how many times he resets, the apocalyptic vision forces its way back in, as if it's a message trying to break through. Frustrated, Eric attempts to delete the fragment, but it's as if the dream itself is resisting. He delves into the code, searching for the source of the disruption, but finds nothing out of the ordinary. The fragment doesn't belong in his design, yet it persists, an unwelcome intruder in his perfect world. As the fragment grows more intrusive, Eric becomes obsessed. He spends hours, then days, trying to isolate the cause, but the more he probes, the more the dream seems to fight back. The fragment isn't just a glitch, it feels intentional, like it's trying to show him something. The scenes of destruction become more detailed with each intrusion, buildings collapsing, people running in panic, the ground splitting open. The vision is terrifying in its clarity. Unable to make sense of it, Eric begins to question his own sanity. Has he been working too hard? Is his mind playing tricks on him? But deep down, he knows there's something more to this. He starts researching, diving into the history of dream technology, hoping to find some explanation for what he's experiencing. His search leads him to old archives, forgotten databases where the earliest experiments in dream creation were documented. It's there that he stumbles upon a name he hasn't heard in years, Dr. Leonard Graves, one of the pioneers of dream technology. Graves was a genius, a visionary who pushed the boundaries of what was possible. But he disappeared under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a legacy of unfinished work and unanswered questions. Among the scattered records, Eric finds references to an abandoned project, something Graves had been working on in secret before his disappearance. The project was rumored to involve not just the creation of dreams, but the manipulation of reality itself. As Eric digs deeper, he uncovers fragments of data, corrupted files that hint at a discovery Graves made, a way to predict the future through dreams. The idea seems absurd, but the evidence is compelling. Graves had believed that dreams, when properly encoded, could tap into the subconscious and reveal future events. He had theorized that certain dreams were not mere fabrications of the mind, but glimpses into what was to come. Eric's heart races as he realizes what this means. The fragment that's been haunting his designs isn't just a glitch, it's a warning. The scenes of destruction are not random, they're a premonition of a disaster that hasn't happened yet. And if Graves was right, this disaster could be triggered by the very technology that created the dream. The implications are staggering. If Eric's dream is truly a window into the future, then the world is on the brink of a catastrophe, one that could be caused by the misuse of dream technology. The thought chills him to the bone. He can't keep this to himself, but who would believe him? How can he convince anyone that a dream could predict the future? Torn between disbelief and the mounting evidence, Eric decides to reach out to those who knew Graves best. He tracks down former colleagues, other dream designers who had worked with Graves before his disappearance. Most are skeptical, dismissing Eric's findings as the product of an overactive imagination. But a few listen, their curiosity piqued by the mention of Graves and his theories. One of them, an older designer named Miriam, offers a clue. She recalls a conversation with Graves, shortly before he vanished, where he spoke of a hidden archive, a place where he had stored his most dangerous work. If it still exists, this archive might hold the answers Eric is looking for. Eric follows the lead, piecing together clues from old notes and encrypted files until he locates the archive. It's buried deep within the network, protected by layers of security that only someone with Graves' level of expertise could have created. Breaking through the defenses, Eric finds himself in a digital vault filled with Graves' final experiments, dreams that were never meant to be seen. As he sifts through the data, Eric uncovers the truth. Graves had indeed found a way to encode future events into dreams, but he had also discovered something far more terrifying: a feedback loop between dreams and reality. The more people interacted with these prophetic dreams, the more likely they were to bring about the very events they foresaw. It was as if the act of dreaming about the future made it inevitable. Graves had realized the danger too late. By the time he understood what he had unleashed, the dream technology was already in widespread use, and the feedback loop was beyond his control. Fearing the worst, he had tried to bury his work, but the damage was done. The dreams were out there, and now they were beginning to surface, showing fragments of the future to anyone who could decode them. Eric feels a cold dread settle over him as he realizes the full extent of the threat. The apocalyptic dream fragment is not just a warning, it's a call to action. If he does nothing, the disaster he's seen will become a reality. But how can he stop it? The dream technology is too deeply embedded in society, too integral to how people live their lives. Desperate, Eric reaches out to the few people he trusts, sharing his findings and pleading for their help. Together, they devise a plan to expose the truth, to show the world the dangers of the technology they've come to depend on. But it's a race against time. The disaster is drawing closer, and every moment they delay brings it nearer. They work in secret, hacking into the global dream network, inserting warnings into the dreams of millions. It's a bold move, one that could either save the world or push it over the edge. As they spread the message, the dream network begins to destabilize. People everywhere start seeing the same visions of destruction, and panic spreads like wildfire. Governments scramble to respond, but the damage is done. The public demands answers, and the truth about Graves' experiments is finally revealed. In the chaos that follows, the dream technology is banned, its creators vilified as the architects of a potential apocalypse. But the ban comes too late to prevent the initial shockwaves from hitting. The disaster doesn't unfold exactly as Eric saw it in the dream, but the world is irrevocably changed. The dream industry collapses, and with it, the society built around it. Eric's actions have averted the worst, but at a tremendous cost. His career as a dream designer is over, his name forever associated with the downfall of the technology he once loved. In the aftermath, Eric walks through the ruins of what was once his life's work. The studio where he created so many beautiful dreams is now just an empty shell, a reminder of the price of his discovery. He stands at the window, watching the sun set over the city, a city that still bears the scars of what might have been, but as the light fades, Eric knows that he made the right choice. The future is uncertain, but at least now, it belongs to those who will face it with open eyes, not through the lens of a dream. And perhaps, in time, humanity will learn to live without the crutch of artificial dreams, and instead, find a way to build a better reality. Eric stared out at the city, the remnants of the sunset casting long shadows across the streets. The silence in his once bustling studio was deafening. The hum of servers, the quiet buzz of creativity, and the gentle flow of imagination had all vanished, leaving behind a void that felt impossible to fill. The world had moved on, and so had the dreamers. But Eric remained, caught between the remnants of his past and the uncertainty of the future. The fall of the dream industry had left deep scars, not just on the city but on the people who had once lived for the chance to escape into their fabricated realities. Without the dreams, many were lost, struggling to find meaning in the harsh light of day. The Dream Network's collapse had also brought unintended consequences: widespread unrest, economic turmoil, and a collective fear of what might come next. The government's response had been swift but not without its own set of complications. The ban on dream technology had thrown the world into chaos, and the shockwaves were still being felt. Eric had avoided the public eye since the truth about Graves' experiments had been revealed. He knew he couldn't hide forever, but the weight of what he had done, the lives he had affected, kept him in the shadows. Yet, as much as he tried to stay invisible, the world had a way of pulling him back. IT started with a message. A simple, unassuming note left on the doorstep of his studio. No one should have known where he was, but someone had found him. The note was brief, almost cryptic: "Meet me at the place where dreams were born." The message was unsigned, but Eric recognized the handwriting. It belonged to Miriam, the older designer who had helped him uncover Graves' archive. They hadn't spoken since the network had collapsed, and Eric wondered what could have driven her to reach out now. Curiosity and a lingering sense of responsibility drove Eric to the meeting place, a small, forgotten cafe on the edge of the city. It was a relic from a time before dreams became a commodity, a place where the first designers had gathered to share ideas and sketch out their visions of what could be. The cafe was empty when Eric arrived, save for Miriam, who sat in a corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. "Eric," she greeted him as he slid into the seat opposite her. Her voice was tired, worn down by the years and the weight of their shared history. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I didn't have much choice," Eric replied, glancing around the empty room. "What's this about, Miriam?" She studied him for a moment, her eyes searching his face for something she wasn't sure she'd find. "I didn't think it would end like this," she said finally. "The dreams, the network, everything we built, gone in an instant." Eric didn't respond. There was nothing he could say that would ease the loss they both felt. "But that's not why I asked you to come," Miriam continued. "There's something you need to know, something that was left behind in Graves' archive. I didn't see it until after the network went down, but it's important, Eric. More important than anything we've done so far." Eric felt a chill run down his spine. The archive had already revealed so much, things that had upended their world. What more could there be? "What is it?" he asked, leaning forward. Miriam pulled a small, data storage device from her coat pocket and placed it on the table between them. "Graves left this behind, hidden deep in the archive. It's a blueprint, Eric. For something he called the final dream." Eric's breath caught. The final dream? He hadn't come across any mention of it during his own investigation. Miriam continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's not just a dream, Eric. It's a failsafe, a way to reset everything, to start over. But it's dangerous, more dangerous than anything we've dealt with before. Graves designed it to be the last resort, a way to wipe the slate clean if the dream technology ever became too powerful." Eric stared at the device, the implications of what she was saying sinking in. "You're saying Graves created a way to erase the entire dream network?" "Not just the network," Miriam said, her eyes dark with concern. "Everything. The final dream is designed to collapse the boundary between dreams and reality. If it's activated, it could destroy the world as we know it. The real world could unravel, just like the dream network did." Eric felt a wave of nausea wash over him. The dream technology had already caused so much damage. How could Graves have created something so catastrophic? But then, he remembered Graves' warnings, the fear that had driven the man to hide his work. Graves had seen the potential for disaster long before anyone else had. "Why are you telling me this now?" Eric asked, his voice hoarse. "If this blueprint is so dangerous, why not destroy it?" Miriam shook her head. "I thought about it, believe me. But I realized something. This blueprint, it's more than just a failsafe. It's also a key, a way to prevent the collapse from happening in the first place. If we can understand it, we might be able to stop the damage that's already been done, or at least prevent it from getting worse." Eric was silent, his mind racing. The thought of using something as dangerous as the final dream to fix what had been broken seemed impossible, but what choice did they have? The world was already teetering on the brink, and if they didn't do something, the collapse might be inevitable. "What do we do?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Miriam looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "We finish what Graves started. We decipher the blueprint, figure out how it works, and find a way to use it without destroying everything." Eric nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. This was a path filled with uncertainty, but it was the only path left. Together, they would dive back into the remnants of the dream network, into the coded layers of Graves' final work. They would have to navigate the ruins of their old world, piecing together the fragments of a future that could either save them or doom them all. As they left the cafe, the weight of their task settled on Eric's shoulders. The streets were empty, the city silent, a stark contrast to the vibrant, bustling world he had once known. He glanced at Miriam, who walked beside him with a determined stride, and wondered how they had come to this. But there was no time for regrets, no time to dwell on what could have been. The future, fragile and uncertain, was in their hands. They returned to Eric's studio, where the remnants of his old life surrounded him. The servers had been powered down, the screens dark, but the memory of what they had once created lingered in the air. Miriam set up her equipment, and together they began to unravel the mystery of the final dream. Hours turned into days as they worked, deciphering the complex code Graves had left behind. The blueprint was intricate, filled with layers of encryption that only someone with Graves' genius could have created. As they delved deeper, they began to see the full scope of what the final dream was capable of, a system designed to reset reality itself, to erase the line between the dream world and the real world. But buried within the code, they also found a safeguard, a way to control the reset, to direct the collapse in a way that could stabilize the damage rather than exacerbate it. It was a slim chance, but it was all they had. As they worked, Eric found himself haunted by memories of the dream network, the worlds he had created, and the people who had relied on his work. He thought of the lives that had been lost, the trust that had been shattered, and the weight of the responsibility he now bore. But he couldn't allow himself to dwell on the past, there was too much at stake. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they had a plan. It wasn't perfect, and the risks were enormous, but it was their only shot. They would have to re-enter the remains of the dream network, activate the final dream, and guide it through the reset process. If they succeeded, they could stabilize the collapse, but if they failed, failure wasn't an option. With the blueprint decoded and their plan in place, Eric and Miriam prepared for what might be their final journey into the world of dreams. The equipment was old, the network fragile, but it was enough. They connected to the dream interface, the familiar hum of the system coming to life around them. For a moment, Eric felt a pang of nostalgia. This had been his world, his life's work. Now, it was the battleground on which the future would be decided. As they plunged into the dreamscape, the remnants of the network flickered around them, ghostly echoes of what had once been. The dream world was unstable, fragments of old designs colliding with the chaos of the collapse. But Eric and Miriam pressed on, navigating the crumbling landscape until they reached the core of the network, the place where Graves had hidden the final dream. The core was a dark, ominous place, filled with the remnants of failed experiments and shattered dreams. But at its center was a glowing sphere, pulsating with energy, the final dream, waiting to be activated. Eric reached out, his hand trembling as he touched the sphere. The code flowed through him, a torrent of data that threatened to overwhelm his senses. But he held on, guiding the energy as Miriam fed the safeguards into the system. The network began to shake, the dreamscape fracturing around them. Eric could feel the collapse accelerating, the boundary between dreams and reality beginning to blur. But they were so close, just a little more, and they would have control. Suddenly, the sphere pulsed violently, sending a shockwave through the network. Eric staggered, his connection faltering as the dream world around him began to dissolve. "Miriam," he shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos that he struggled to hold on, to keep the reset process under control, but it was slipping away. The final dream was too powerful, too unstable. He could feel reality beginning to unravel, the feedback loop spinning out of control, and then, just as he thought all was lost, he felt a surge of energy, Miriam's safeguards kicking in, stabilizing the process. The sphere pulsed again, but this time, it was different, calmer, more controlled. The collapse slowed, the dreamscape beginning to reform around them. Eric held his breath, guiding the reset as carefully as he could. The line between dreams and reality was razor thin, but they had done it. The final dream was under control, the collapse halted. As the last of the energy settled, the dreamscape stabilized. The remnants of the old network were gone, replaced by a new, fragile reality. Eric and Miriam had succeeded, but at a cost. The world they had once known was gone, replaced by something new, something uncertain. Exhausted, Eric disconnected from the system, the studio coming back into focus around him. Miriam was already there, her face pale but determined. They had done it, they had saved what could be saved. But as they looked at each other, they both knew the work wasn't over. The future was still fragile, still hanging in the balance, but for the first time in a long time, Eric felt a glimmer of hope. They had faced the darkness and come out the other side. Now, it was up to them, and to the world, to rebuild, to learn from the past and forge a new path forward, and perhaps, in time, they would find a way to dream again. But this time, those dreams would be real.